this? Born green? Huh. I can't take it anymore. My stomach hurts. From this. It's not hard to see that this stone giant must have a pretty good life. How to describe it? Just talk. Honestly, the entire process had me pumped up, but I never expected to be completely caught off guard by this guy. It can't be blamed on our giant baby. We can only blame the designer for being too ridiculous. Who would have thought that such a fierce beast could look so adorable? The tuft of green on the stone giant's head led to endless teasing in the live stream. However, in the game world, these native NPCs had no concept of a green tuft on their heads. This group of people stared wide-eyed at the stone giant, which was about to occupy half the area. Mountain giants like this, aside from what is recorded in ancient texts, no one has ever seen in person. And for these witnesses, only one word remained in their hearts. Huge. Really huge. At this moment, even Liao couldn't help but curse. While in shock, he started to feel frustrated. Compared to the stone giant, his proud artillery piece looked like a large toothpick. How could they compare? How could they play? Just the giant's size alone made it seem like any attack would leave it unscathed. However, it was impossible to make him easily concede. As a master architect, his skills were certainly not limited to just this artillery piece. If it came to life and death, with Carrie's strength, Liao could defeat the opponent within a minute. But this was not a life and death situation. Some powerful things couldn't be demonstrated here. Uncle Li, even Carrie himself took a while to recover from the shock. Turning to glance at Liao, whose expression was slightly unpleasant, and apologized. I'm sorry, I didn't expect it to be this big. Hearing Carrie's words, Liao felt as if he was being mocked. His already unattractive face instantly darkened as he said in a deep voice, "Do you think this old man is not as good as your stone giant?" Hearing this, Carrie immediately realized that his words had displeased the other party. He wanted to explain, but unexpectedly, Liao's gloomy voice rang out again. "Young man, don't think that just because you have a stone figure, you can do whatever you want." Without giving Carrie a chance to speak, Liao reached into his toolkit. In the next moment, he took out 2 cubic devices and began to strike them quickly in front of everyone. The crowd looked on in surprise, not expecting that the situation would continue like this. As Liao struck, a thin wooden wall covered in black iron spikes rose up on the field. Seeing this, the sword and shield warrior couldn't help but exclaim, "Uncle Li, what do you intend to do? You're actually raising a thorn wall." To be a professional mentor, one must either have master-level strength or exceptional skills. While there was no direct involvement among the various professions, they were still quite knowledgeable about each other. At this moment, someone noticed something unusual and, staring wide-eyed at the thorn wall created by Liao, exclaimed, "How is this possible? This guy's thorn wall is not an ordinary thorn wall." The sword and shield warrior, hearing this, looked at the thorn wall in confusion, then turned to the elder who spoke and asked, "Master Ken, is there something wrong with Uncle Li's thorn wall?" Absolutely. At this time, the red-haired uncle reappeared in everyone's line of sight, staring at Liao's thorn wall with a serious expression. It is well known that the summons created by architects have a clear level classification, ranging from level 1 to level 9. Everyone knew that a level 9 structure was the most powerful summon level an architect could achieve. As he spoke, the red-haired man looked at the thorn wall with an even more serious expression and whispered, "But that thorn wall belongs to a level 12 summon. I've only seen something like that once in my life." As he spoke, he shifted his gaze to the small black hammer in Liao's hand. "I never expected that thing would end up in his hands." It seems that the news from back then was true. The red-haired man's explanation made the sword and shield warrior understand immediately, and he became curious about the other thing the former mentioned. However, no matter how much he asked, the red-haired man remained tight-lipped. A level 12 structure? Carrie, who was nearby, felt his expression turn serious upon hearing the red-haired man's words. Others might have some understanding of the summoning profession, but that was merely superficial knowledge. As a giant summoner, his understanding of his profession far exceeded anyone else's. It was precisely because of this understanding that he felt so grave. Although there was only a 3-level difference between level 9 and level 12, those 3 levels were likely unattainable for anyone in their lifetime. Moreover, these 3 levels represented the transformation of summons. The world knows that level 9 summons are powerful, but what they don't know is that in the face of level 12, level 9 summons are as fragile as children. Taking the artillery platform in front of him as a comparison, although both are artillery platforms, to destroy a level 12 platform, it would likely require 3 to 5 level 9 platforms in a direct confrontation. It may seem insignificant, but the financial cost involved is something that an average person cannot bear. Fortunately, the conflict with Liao is not a real battle, otherwise, just the loss of his Earth core would be enough to trouble him for a lifetime. However, at this moment, he cannot give up the thought of competition. "Thankfully, I have it," Carrie muttered to himself, his right hand unconsciously stroking the silver pendant hanging on his chest. This pendant, while it cannot allow his summoned creature to surpass Liao, does inherently increase its level by 2, which should prevent his mountain giant from losing too embarrassingly. In fact, with the mountain giant's naturally strong defense, defeating the opponent is not out of the question. Chapter 315, Fame and Architect Bang. With a violent sound, the area behind the professional hall shook as if an earthquake had struck. The shockwave generated by the terrifying impact sent dust and debris flying across the space. However, despite the seemingly horrific punch that even cracked the ground, the thorn wall summoned by Li Ao still stood firm in front of the stone giant. Given the height of the thorn wall, the stone giant could easily step over it. Yet, the stone giant did not do so. Seeing that its blow had failed to destroy the obstructive barrier, it raised its fists and roared in anger. As it vented its fury, the giant stone fists came crashing down on the thorn wall once more. Boom. Bang. With another terrifying impact, dirt and stones were sent flying, accompanied by the roar of the stone giant. Mixed within that furious roar was a hint of pain. What the heck? What is that old man's defense wall made of? Seriously, this is just absurd. That huge guy couldn't he break it even with 2 punches? Not that it wasn't he damaged, it's just a bit. Look at those black thorns on top, they're already bent. What? Is it bent? If you're so capable, stand there and let that big fool try to smash it. Are you stupid? Even if the 4 great guardians stood there, that punch would likely leave them regretting it. Who are the 4 great guardians? In stark contrast to the lively live broadcast, the surroundings of the arena had fallen into an eerie silence. Several class transition instructors stared intently, some even in disbelief, at the still-standing thorn wall. Despite taking 2 heavy hits from the stone giant, the thorn wall, made entirely of wood and iron thorns, remained as solid as a city wall. Even though the black thorns on top had dulled and bent, the wooden frame supporting the iron thorns was still intact. One could say that the sturdiness of this thorn wall had surpassed their understanding. Even the red-haired, scar-faced man stared wide-eyed. After a long moment, he began to mutter to himself, "The Black God Tree, it cannot be wrong. That guy used the Black God Tree." The red-haired, scar-faced man repeated this to himself, while the sword and shield youth beside him felt puzzled. What is the Black God Tree? It is a giant tree that grows at the peak of Mount Pespella. According to legend, that tree. This time, the red-haired, scar-faced man did not hold back, slowly sharing what he knew about the Black God Tree. After listening to his account, the sword and shield youth stared in disbelief. Although he still did not fully understand how powerful the Black God Tree was, he had heard the name of Mount Pespella. It was said to be the pinnacle of the world. A tree growing at the world's peak should not be an ordinary tree. The current sturdiness of the thorn wall was enough to prove the extraordinary nature of this divine tree. The Black God Tree is known to be the strongest and hardest tree in the world. However, it is still wood. And after enduring 2 heavy hits from the stone giant, it began to show signs of strain. Buzz. As the stone giant delivered its 3rd mighty strike, the impressive thorn wall finally began to crack under the unbearable weight with a series of sharp sounds. A fierce wind and dust swirled around, culminating in a thunderous collapse. As the thorn wall shattered, splinters of wood and dark iron thorns flew everywhere, and nearly half of the giant's massive stone fists also fractured. The stone giant roared again, its voice filled with anger and frustration. Unlike the lifeless thorn wall, the stone giant, although not highly intelligent, was a creature with thoughts. Even with an intellect comparable to that of a small child, it could still be considered an emotional being. After 3 strikes to destroy the thorn wall, and having sustained injuries itself, the stone giant instinctively felt a surge of anger. In its fury, the giant turned its attention to the artillery positions behind the crumbling thorn wall. Seeing the towering gun emplacements, it pounded its chest and roared in rage, stepping forward with the intent to crush the structures before it. Boom, boom, boom. However, before the stone giant could approach, the standing artillery opened fire first. Accompanied by a deafening sound, brilliant flames shot out from the dragon-like gun muzzles, resembling the breath of a dragon at first glance. Among the dazzling flames, black projectiles were launched, and before anyone could react, explosive sounds erupted. Compared to the earlier impact from the stone giant's attacks on the thorn wall, the force of the explosions from the artillery was terrifying. The scorching shockwaves carried fragments of stone shed from the giant, scattering like bullets. Witnessing this, everyone instinctively prepared to defend themselves. At that moment, a shadow appeared in front of them, clinking as it shielded them from the flying debris. As the swirling dust settled, they finally saw that it was the steel warrior standing before them. Only then did they understand why Carrie had summoned it in advance. With the protection of the steel warrior, they felt emboldened to look toward the training ground. Gasp! When they saw the horrific scene unfolding, they couldn't help but take a sharp breath. Terrifying, brutal. In that moment, those 2 adjectives were all that came to their minds. All the NPCs were left speechless by the shock. Meanwhile, Lu Dao stood there, dumbfounded and unable to speak, even feeling as if his breathing was becoming labored. In his live broadcast room, the atmosphere had already erupted. Hundreds of thousands of viewers were utterly stunned by the strikingly realistic scene before them. Lacking the vocabulary, All they could exclaim was, "What the heck? This is incredible. Not just incredible, from now on, summoning is my faith. Oh my goodness. Can someone tell me? Is that a homemade cannon? If we had something like this back in the day, would we have been bullied by those 8 invaders? If we had this, the world would have condemned us for possessing weapons of mass destruction. To be honest, this is almost on par with modern weaponry. It's really hard to believe that it's just a homemade cannon." At this moment, the shock that netizens felt towards the stone giant was completely overshadowed by the terrifying power of the artillery in front of them. They realized that the physics knowledge they had learned was entirely useless in the face of this dragon head-shaped earth cannon. No matter how hard they tried to think, they couldn't fathom why this simple earth cannon possessed destructive power akin to that of a missile. It can be said that this shot by Li Ao made netizens remember the profession of architect. This profession, although bearing the most ordinary name, holds the terrifying ability to shake everything. In an instant, the profession of architect became the most sought-after career online. Of course, not everyone on the internet favored summoning. There were also pure believers who strongly supported warriors and gunslingers. The most overlooked profession was that represented by the beautiful woman in the wheelchair, the doll summoner. It wasn't until a female streamer chose this profession that players began to realize the terrifying potential of this role. Chapter 316. The fruit stand owner. As the strategy spread online, many players found NPCs suspected of distributing flyers in their respective areas. With a sense of curiosity, players approached to inquire, and when they received the flyers and saw the posters, they couldn't help but tremble with excitement. Looking at the architectural style in the background of the flyer, they were certain they had found the right place. Players who received the prerequisite tasks immediately rushed towards their destination, eager and without hesitation. While longing for that world, they also found themselves drawn to the character prominently featured on the poster. No, to be more precise, it was the weapon that person held. Although the image on the poster was static, everyone could see that it was a gigantic sword shimmering with lightning. Its cool appearance, akin to that of a divine artifact, instantly attracted countless players' admiration and desire. At the same time, they understood that in order to wield this weapon, they would need to change their class to a warrior. At that moment, countless players across the internet decided to switch to the warrior class, not for faith, but solely for the weapon. Dear adventurer, the continent of Otan is facing an unprecedented crisis. Governor Fu Minghan calls on adventurers to unite against the invasion from the Empire. Have you decided to head to Otan? When players arrived at their respective task locations, a prompt box appeared before them. Forget about resisting the invasion from other empires. Even if it were a local hell, players wouldn't care at this moment. All players unanimously made a choice. As they completed their selections, beams of light descended from the sky, instantly enveloping these players. The dazzling brilliance made everyone instinctively close their eyes. Just a breath later, they heard the sound of a gentle breeze rustling through green grass. When they instinctively opened their eyes, they found themselves no longer in the mechanical city. Looking around, they saw green hills and grass, with a gentle breeze brushing against their faces. The entire scene was instantly refreshing. Otan, this is Otan. At this moment, someone in the crowd shouted. Hearing the shout, players turned to see where it came from. Before them stood a Gothic-style city that seemed to belong to the 16th century, capable of accommodating millions of people. Especially the striking, sharp tower at the center of the city, exuding a strong artistic vibe. This was simply a work of art. Indeed, while the style was very close to Gothic, with even some Baroque elements, it looked more like a piece of art than a mere building. Haha, I wonder if it's just my imagination, but seeing that tower, I feel like I've spotted the statue of the old thief from the city of Duoyen. Wow, don't say, it really has that vibe. Seriously, can we not ruin the mood? How could such a noble thing be associated with that old thief? Upon hearing that netizens' words, those around couldn't help but recall the statue in the city of Duoyen. The thought of the old thief being worshipped as a deity by those giants made everyone feel extremely disgusted. However, it cannot be denied that at this moment, everyone felt that this tall tower was likely related to Lin Fei. But right now, no one was in the mood to study the tower. Their minds were filled with thoughts about job changes or what profession they had already decided to switch to. This group of players with clear objectives determined the direction toward Aoduan City and quickly headed there without any delay. Fortunately, it was not far, and in just a short while, they arrived at the west gate of Aoduan City. At this time, the city guards were already lined up in front of the gate, seemingly aware of their arrival in advance. The city guards, with a clear command, stated that there were people lining up for registration. Although the players were eager, they still followed the arrangements and obediently registered at the city gate. The registration process was simple, just writing down their names, ages, and genders. Once registered, the players could no longer hold back and inquired about the location of the job change hall before rushing off in a swarm. A large group of adventurers flooded in, instantly bringing life to the previously quiet Aoduan City. Some indigenous people, seeing a business opportunity, set up stalls selling goods in various neighborhoods. However, due to a lack of labor, They only sold fruits and fruit wines. The players shook their heads repeatedly, feeling that it was too monotonous. Boss, how much for this fruit? Maya, originally a food broadcaster, had changed her career to become a game streamer due to health reasons. Although she had switched careers, her curiosity about novel foods made her instinctively stop. The fruit stall owner, who hadn't seen anyone inquire for a long time, perked up upon hearing her. Little girl, these fruits are picked by me. They are so sweet. The stall owner, looking at the chubby Maya, immediately picked up a bright red fruit resembling an apple and handed it to her, saying, "You can try it first. If it's not sweet, you don't have to pay." Hee, that's not necessary. Maya instinctively waved her hand. "I believe you. This fruit looks delicious." The fruit stall owner laughed and said, "You're quite the charmer, little girl. Since you're my first customer, I'll give you half price, 2 for 1 copper coin. 2 fruits for 1 copper coin." Maya was taken aback, not because she thought the fruit was expensive, but she didn't expect this kind of trading method. Selling fruits by the piece? That was quite rare. At the same time, she became curious about the copper coins the stall owner mentioned. She realized that she didn't have the currency of this world on her, and for a moment, she felt a bit troubled. However, she quickly thought of something and looked up at the fruit stall owner. The woman appeared to be in her 30s to 40s, not exceptionally beautiful, but exuding a charm of a mature woman. Seeing this, Maya decisively took off a decorative ring from her left hand and said, "That big sister, how about this? Can I trade you this ring for 2 fruits? Huh?" Seeing Maya's actions, the fruit stall owner was clearly taken aback. After a moment of surprise, she hurriedly waved her hand, saying, No, that's too expensive." Although she didn't know the value of the ring, she realized from the gemstones it was set with that it was likely quite valuable. "Don't worry, this ring isn't worth much." Maya's response immediately increased the owner's regard for her. The ring was simply something she exchanged for 10 points in the mechanical city. So she wasn't lying. As a woman, how could one resist the allure of jewelry? Especially this ring, which was truly beautiful. After hesitating for a moment, the fruit stall owner suddenly asked, "Are you also an adventurer planning to go to the professional hall?" Taken aback by the unexpected question, Maya quickly replied without any concealment, "Yeah, I'm here to change my profession." Hearing her confirmation, the conflicted expression on the owner's face finally relaxed, and she leaned in closer to whisper, "If you want to change your profession, I can recommend you to find that girl Lena." Lena? Upon hearing the name, Maya secretly noted it down in her mind and smiled. "Thank you, sister." While speaking, she placed the ring on the fruit stall and picked up 2 pieces of fruit. Ready to leave. Just a few steps out, she heard the owner's voice behind her. "If you have any difficulties in the future, you can come find me. The fruit is free for you." Maya didn't turn around but raised her arm and waved, saying, "Thank you, sister." After that, she took a bite of the bright red fruit in her hand. Ugh! In the next moment, her entire face scrunched up. So sour. Chapter 317. This streamer is all about the action streamer. I think this fruit should be peeled before eating. Looking at Maya's chubby little face, scrunched up like a dumpling, the attentive viewers in the live chat couldn't help but remind her. Hearing the reminders, Maya finally noticed the fruit she hadn't thrown away. There was a very obvious mark between the bright red skin and the flesh, indicating that this fruit really needed peeling. In this amusing mix-up, Maya didn't feel embarrassed at all. Suppressing the sourness in her mouth, she smiled and said, "Hee, actually I noticed it long ago. I just wanted to liven up the atmosphere." However, the viewers in the chat were not buying it at all. "Blowing your own horn, huh? Haha, I admire your shamelessness." That's right. The streamer is the only serious female streamer who boasts like this on the entire internet. Even the likes of Sister Luo would feel inferior after watching her. It's a fact that those who can become streamers usually have some skills. Just like Maya, who used to do eating broadcasts where others pretended to eat and made a fortune while she actually ate. She earned money, but barely enough to cover her medical expenses. Reluctantly, she exited the eating broadcast industry and turned her attention to the currently hottest gaming section. As a complete novice in gaming, she initially thought her streaming career would be filled with obstacles, yet to her surprise, the audience loved her confused look while pretending to understand everything. So delicious. Peeling off the bright red skin, Maya took another bite, and her eyes squinted with delight. Wow, it's soft, sweet, and has a subtle fragrance. Maya swore she had never eaten such delicious fruit in her life, nor did she expect such a delicacy could be found at a roadside stall. Her blissful expression was seen by the audience, but no one was buying it. "I say, streamer, can you stop switching topics all the time?" "Exactly. You need to remember, you're no longer in eating broadcasts. Isn't it better to focus on gaming?" "Ugh, it's really a headache. You say you're bad at gaming, but you don't even listen to instructions. This kid is hopeless." Facing the barrage of comments from viewers, Maya maximized her thick skin. Despite being a girl with a somewhat naive and sweet quality, she was actually a foodie hated by her fans, and for that reason, she faced a lot of criticism. Over time, Maya got used to this streaming rhythm. While others streamed to solve mysteries, go on adventures, or create guides for their fans, she did the complete opposite. Following her fans' requests and with guidance from them, this scatterbrained Maya finally found the profession hall. However, the area in front of the profession hall was already crowded with people, and there were city guards maintaining order in the square. Seeing this scene, the viewers in the chat immediately started complaining. Look at this. I told you to hurry up, but you insisted on dragging it out. Now look, with so many people, when will we get in? I know, right? I'm starting to envy those games where models can overlap. That kind of overlap is just trash. This is what real feeling is. Facing the debates from the viewers in the live stream, Maya did not express any opinion, her big, round eyes carefully observing the small square. After a while, as if she thought of something, she immediately walked towards the guards maintaining order. Stop! Before she could get close to a few guards, one of them, resembling a small leader, shouted to her. Upon hearing this, Maya stopped in her tracks, her chubby little face breaking into a smile as she said, "Hey there, could you make an exception?" Make an exception? The guard leader stared at the grinning Maya, showing no sign of friendliness, nor did he get too angry. He simply said in a harsh tone, "Can't you see everyone is in line?" Despite the guard's attitude, Maya maintained her cheerful demeanor, unfazed as she replied, "I see. But my purpose for coming here is different from theirs." Different purpose? Upon hearing Maya's words, the guard leader looked puzzled. Noticing his reaction, Maya quickly took out the remaining fruit that she hadn't eaten. It's like this. I was strolling on the street, and the lady selling fruit said her niece works in the professional hall and asked me to pass on a message. Here, this fruit is the reward. Grandma? Looking at the fruit in Maya's hand, the guard leader instantly recognized it. This type of fruit was only sold by one person in the entire city. And the only person who worked in the professional hall and had a good relationship with Grandma was a woman named Lena who used a wheelchair. Although the guard leader was unclear about the relationship between Grandma and Lena, he knew they were on good terms and often seen together. Since there was Grandma's fruit and he knew Lena was in the professional hall, it seemed likely that this was a request from Grandma. The guard leader didn't think too much and after a brief consideration, stepped aside. Once you go in, don't wander around. Ask the staff, they will tell you Lena's location. Upon hearing this, Maya immediately thanked him and walked into the professional hall without hesitation. Her move left the viewers in the live stream stunned. Wow. The host's operation is amazing. Not just amazing, it's downright reckless. I think the host is trying to end her gaming career early. Yeah, I advise the host to do this kind of thing less often. Do you really not know the game's rules? The host's action was similar to that guy pretending to be an NPC to scam people a few days ago. But the host is lucky. While that guy ended up permanently banned. That's why they say, fools have their blessings. However, I think it's better to do less of this kind of thing. Seeing the comments, Maya couldn't help but feel a bit scared. She didn't expect that the game's rules would be so strict. To her, she hadn't done anything wrong, just borrowed the name of an NPC. So does this mean I'm quite lucky? The deed was done, and regretting it was pointless. So she decided to feel at ease again. Wow, so beautiful. I now feel that those who travel abroad are foolish. The architecture and decor here are not inferior to those famous landmarks overseas. As soon as Maya stepped into the transition hall, her attention was drawn to the vintage murals. Although she couldn't understand or even comprehend them, those battle-like murals seemed to open up a grand world before her eyes. The sounds of fierce battles echoed in her mind. Walking through the corridor that resembled a history museum made it hard to resist immersing herself in this foreign history. Wow, this must be the warrior profession, right? So awesome. Just as Maya was lost in the world of the murals, a gasp caught her attention. Coming back to her senses, she immediately walked over to the player and instinctively glanced at the wall. So cool. Chapter 318. Come on. Show it. On the wall, in front of a clearly ruined door that appears to be a relic, stands a young man clad in exquisite armor. His long hair flows dramatically as he grips a colossal sword with both hands, surrounded by swirling energy. Behind him, a vaguely visible massive silhouette mirrors his movements, wielding a giant sword in a sweeping posture. Surrounding the young man and the gigantic phantom are a group of red monsters that are neither fully human nor fully ghostly. Each one has sharp teeth and fangs, resembling demons that crawled out of hell. The warriors in the mural and the red demons are equally captivating. But what draws the most attention is the enormous creature behind those monsters. Or rather, it is a gigantic treasure chest with limbs. At that moment, everyone carefully scrutinized this exaggeratedly shaped monster. Some even speculated, do you think the boss in this mural is the same as the one that drops the weapon shown on the poster? Upon hearing this player's speculation, everyone couldn't help but think of the thunderous giant sword held by the central NPC on the poster. Instantly, excitement surged among the crowd once again. Currently, 70% of the players entering this realm are fantasizing about that weapon. After all, who could resist such an impressive weapon? Everyone. The creature in this mural is called the Treasure Demon. It has disappeared from the world ever since the Ketra ruins were closed. As for the weapon you mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, it should be the King of Expansion. Just as the discussion was ongoing, a slightly aged voice echoed in the corridor. Everyone instinctively turned to look and saw an old man, leaning on a cane and hunched over, slowly approaching while speaking. I am Glenn. If you all want to learn about these murals, there will be time in the future, so don't keep the masters waiting. Upon hearing Glenn's words, the crowd finally reacted, quickly regaining their composure and hurriedly walked towards the hall. Seeing others leave, Maya's eyes twinkled as she approached Glenn and cheerfully asked, "Excuse me, do you know where Lena is? Grandma asked me to bring her a message." Grandma? Glenn's body trembled slightly at the mention of this name, and no one noticed the fleeting glimmer in his murky eyes. After a moment, he replied, "That little girl seems to be alone in the backyard. Not sure what has affected her." After getting Lena's location from Glenn and casually asking how to get to the backyard, Maya hurried off without hesitation. To her, the choice of profession was not important. What mattered was making things easier for herself. With this connection to Grandma, even if it was uncertain, there is an old saying, it's easier to get things done with someone on the inside. Even if this connection was just newly established, she felt it was better than approaching an unfamiliar mentor on her own. Grandma, what a long-forgotten name. As Maya watched the departing figure of green, she muttered a few words under her breath and glanced at the mural remnants on the wall before shakily leaving with her cane. Soon, Maya arrived at the backyard of the profession hall, where a scene of chaos greeted her eyes. The entire yard looked as if it had been plowed and harrowed. There was still a faint lingering smell of gunpowder in the air. At the edge of this disarray, a beautiful girl in a purple long dress sat in a wheelchair, lost in thought. Noticing that there was no one else around, Maya hesitated for a moment before approaching. "Lynn, Mentor Lena?" The sudden voice snapped the girl back to reality. She turned her wheelchair, and upon seeing the unfamiliar Maya, instinctively frowned, noting the displeasure on her face. Maya confirmed her identity and immediately put on a smile. "I was sent by Sister Grandma. She asked me to learn from you." Throughout this journey, Maya had become increasingly adept at leveraging Grandma's name. Even when facing Lena, she felt no embarrassment at all. As she had anticipated, Grandma's name proved to be effective. When Lena heard Grandma's name, her displeasure instantly vanished, and she asked Maya, "How is Aunt Grandma? I haven't seen her for several days." "Haha, Sister Grandma is doing well. She can eat, run, and even asked me to bring you a fruit." Maya skillfully navigated the social intricacies, pulling the only fruit from her pocket and handing it to Lena. At that moment, she silently congratulated herself for not succumbing to temptation and eating it. Seeing the fruit Maya offered, Lena completely believed her words, and a genuine smile finally appeared on her previously cool face. "Hee, it seems Aunt Grandma is really doing well. She even had time to pick fire tongue fruit." Fire tongue fruit. Is that what it is? Only then did Maya learn the name of the fruit in front of her. It was a special fruit that grew in the valley west of Otan, and only Grandma could gather it in the entire city of Otan. After a brief introduction, Lena suddenly shifted the topic. "Are you really planning to become a puppet master?" "Puppet master?" Maya, who didn't fully understand everything, was momentarily stunned and then asked in surprise, "Sister, can puppets really be a profession?" Wow. The viewers in the live stream were astonished by her boldness. They exclaimed that no one could rival her audacity. At this moment, they realized that this streamer had a level of boldness that was comparable to a city wall. Lena was also taken aback by the seemingly cute, chubby girl in front of her, who was so familiar and forward. This made her feel somewhat uncomfortable. However, considering that the girl was introduced by Aunt Grandma, she endured her discomfort and briefly explained some things about being a puppet master. However, as she continued to explain, her expression gradually turned cold again. It wasn't that she disliked the chubby girl in front of her, it was just, how could there be such a naive person in the world? The other party was just chatting away, looking quite clever, but when it came to the job introduction, they had a completely blank expression. It was simply a rare phenomenon. Nevertheless, despite her displeasure, Lena patiently finished the introduction. However, the other person's bewildered look was genuinely frustrating. With no other option, Lena sighed and glanced at the messy venue, saying, "It seems you didn't understand. Forget it. I'll demonstrate for you. Having connections makes it easier to secure a position." This statement couldn't be more accurate. Without the renowned title, Maya would probably have been kicked out by Lena long ago. How could she still be patient enough to demonstrate puppet mastery for her? Sitting in her wheelchair, Lena unapologetically took out a black object resembling a cross from her pocket. In an instant, someone in the live stream recognized the object. Is that a control device for puppets? Can it also be used as a combat tool? Before the viewers could ask more questions, Lena in the wheelchair had already started her demonstration. Chapter 319, Puppet Master. One-person army. Wow. So this is what a master looks like. I can't believe it. This is just too brutal. Haha, what giant creature summoning, what warriors. Compared to this beauty, they are simply weak. The viewers holding their phones to watch the live stream were all stunned at this moment. No matter how hard they tried to figure it out, they never expected that the one hidden deepest in the professional hall was actually this girl in a wheelchair in the video. Looking at the various types